Hey, what's up? So I'm gonna make a video about what I call the hump. So if you're here, you've probably seen my Reddit post. And this is just gonna be me explaining what I think about when I think about the hump and why I think it's useful. So here's what I'm gonna talk about in the video. So first I'm gonna talk about what the hump is. It's gonna be pretty quick. And then I'm gonna talk about the benefits of humping. So I got some graphs and some stuff that we get to go through. And then 3, I'm going to analyze some examples of humps. All right, so first, what is the hump? Well, the hump is exactly what it sounds like. I have it written down here. It's basically bringing your hips out from the wall and then towards the wall. And you're going to do this when you're doing a non-static move. So why I say a non-static move instead of a dynamic move is because I don't say a dynamic move because then people just think dynos and jumps. Well, you do hump on those for sure. You can also hump on bump moves. I think the hump is very prominent during bump moves and also fall-in moves. So if you're falling into a hold, I think the hump is very, very, very useful for that. So let's take a look at some examples that we're going to go back and look at after I talk about the benefits of humping. All right, so here's one. You've probably seen this video, 3 degrees of separation. Take a look at his hips. I'm gonna play it in real time and then halftime. Okay. All right, did you see it? Did you see it? Let's rewind. Let's go quarter speed. Right there. Did you see his hips move back? All right, so let's see that again. So look at his hips again. Right there. See, he goes out from the wall, then jumps in and tries to stick the dyno and does not stick it. But that's besides the point. Take a look at that movement. So we're going to analyze why that is good. We're going to analyze why that's good, and yeah. So that's one example. Here's classic, everyone's seen this video. Take a look at this Deadpoint. All right, did you see that? Look at his right hip and how close to the wall it gets when he takes his hand off, and then how close it is whenever he latches the hold. So let's play that again, but slower. All right, so look at this huge bump move, and look how close his right hip gets to the wall. Bam! Humps his right hip all the way into the wall. Actually, it almost looks like he's hitting his hip to the wall. That's how close he's getting. All right, so we're going to take a look at these examples and plus 3 more, as you can see up here, with the humps. All right, so I want to talk about the first benefit of humping, which I think is time. So as you can see, I have a graph here about what a hump is, and let me take you through this a bit logically. So as you can see, the hump is in the green, and it starts, if you're humping, then the distance from the wall is, your distance from the wall is greater than if you're not humping, because you're sticking your butt out. So you're going to start away from the wall a bit, and then you're going to hump, so you're going to go into the wall. So that's why we go down. The distance from the wall is decreased, and then you're going to naturally start falling, right? So that's the hump, but if you don't hump, then you start at the point where your hips are closest to the wall, and you're immediately going to start falling. You don't get that initial closure of the distance. As you can see, this length right here on the y-axis, this is going to be your hump size. So depending on how large you hump is going to be, how much time you receive. And then this is going to be this distance right here. This is going to be the amount of time gained. before you start falling. So this dashed line is kind of an asymptote, just me being like, if you go past this distance from the wall, you're falling for sure. All right, so this is so you get this amount of time, it's some nondescript time. There's no equation or anything. It is very theoretical for this amount of hump size. The bigger the hump, the more time you're gonna gain. The smaller the hump, the less time you're gonna gain. So I believe that this is the first benefit of humping. All right, so the other benefit that I think humping has is for dead pointing. So what is a dead point? Well, you've definitely heard of that term before, but dead pointing is not necessarily what you might think. So a lot of people think dead pointing is whenever you go for a hold and you jump for it, basically, or it's a really far like reach, and you have to extend your body fully or something. That's not necessarily what I think a dead point is. I think a dead point is a technique rather than a type of move. A dead point is hitting the hold at the apex of your motion. And why is that the case? Well, at the apex of your motion, your velocity is essentially zero. So if you think about just a person jumping up and down, there's a point in time that you are going from up to down. And that specific point in time, your velocity is going to be exactly zero. So if you take a look at this graph, this is a graph of someone maybe jumping up, and then they're jumping down, or they're falling down at this point. At this point, if you know like basic calculus, our velocity is zero because the slope of the tangent line is zero. That dead pointing is hitting the hold here every time you're at the apex of the motion. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be jumping to a hold, even though it does apply to that, or it doesn't mean it has to be a big stretch. It just means if you're going to a hold, go ahead and hit it at the dead point. This only applies to dynamic moves. If you're staticking, then you're just reaching for the hold. But if you're going dynamic to a hold at all, then go ahead and dead point to the hold. Doesn't necessarily mean like stab at it, but hit it at the apex of your motion. So this is kind of a two-dimensional version of dead pointing. Of you going up then down, you want to hit it at the apex of your upward motion. Now humping allows you to dead point in the real world, which is 3 dimensions. So let's go ahead and explain that as well. All right, so here we have another plot. The blue line is going to be the wall, and this green line is dividing space into 2 regions. The region above the green line is going to be the region where you can hit the hold, because you're close enough to the hold to where you can hit it. And the region below the green line is going to be the region where you cannot hit the hold because you're too far away. So this red line is tracking the motion of a climber that did not hump. So let's go ahead and look at this. So as you can see, they started with their hips into the wall. So they started with their hips close to the wall. And as we talked about before, if you go back maybe a couple minutes, they are always falling away from the wall. So if you notice, the distance from them and the wall is always increasing. If I pick a point here, this distance is greater, and if I pick a point here, this distance is a lot greater than the initial distance from the wall. So that's literally not humping at all. And why is this bad? Well, this is bad because if you look at the region where the red line is, where the trajectory of the climber can hit, where they can hit the hold, it's already really far away from the wall. Like it's basically this last line. It's double the distance from where you started. That's not very good. Let's take a look at the climber that did hump, though. So the climber that did hump, they started with their hips away from the wall, by bringing their hips all the way back. And by doing the hump, which is kind of this initial motion, as you can see, they're actually very close to the wall. And they're actually about half the distance from the wall than the climber that did not hump. And of course, this is just a sketch, but that could very well happen in real life. And that's why is being close to the wall good? Well, being close to the wall is good because the hold that you're latching is better when you're closer to the wall, always. Think about all the times you have tried to jump for a hold or tried to go for a hold, and your body is already, so far away from the wall, you're basically falling, and you can't really reel it back in. Well, if you're close to the wall, then you can reel it back in a lot easier, because if a hold is, say, like this, that's kind of like the plane of the hold. Well, if you're closer to the wall, you are closer to perpendicular to the hold, which is the ideal angle to exert as much force as possible on the hold. So that's why you want to be close to the wall. And yeah, so as you can see, just to reiterate, whenever the humping climber gets into the region where they can reach the hold, they're much closer to the wall, which is really good. And I was mentioning dead points earlier, so I'm going to continue on with that in the next slide. All right, so now I'm going to talk about dead pointing and then adjusting the hump. So we've seen this graph before. This right here was the hump size, and it still is. And this here is the amount of time that you gained from doing this hump. Now, we're going to be dead pointing on this axis too. So if you're humping, this on this green line, then you're going to be hitting the hold here. This is ideal, when you're closest to the wall. If you're not humping, the ideal spot to hit the hold would be right here, because that's when you're closest to the wall. Now, what if I don't want to hit the hold after this amount of time? What if I'm going to hit the hold sooner? Well, if you're going to hit the hold sooner, then you can adjust the size of your hump. So let's say you're only going to hump half of the size as the green hump. Well, let's draw a trajectory here. So maybe it looks something like that, and you're now going to hit the hold at this point. So if you want to hit the hold sooner than maybe a full hump, then do a smaller hump. To hit the hold sooner. All right. So in the examples I'll show you, that's why there's a lot of people that are humping at different amounts, and for different reasons. So I want to go through some examples of very good climbers humping, and I'm going to talk about them and kind of maybe explain to why they're doing this. And full disclaimer, I don't think that many climbers, would call this the hump or realize that they're doing this. I've talked to a good amount of people, and not that many people seem to be aware that they're doing this, but a lot of people are doing it. So I'm going to bring it to y'all's attention. Let's go ahead and look at some examples. All right, we're going to go over some examples of humping in some videos. So we already seen this one, but I want you to watch it again with some extra knowledge. Also, specifically with dynos, humping allows you to put more weight on your foot, and it allows you to jump off your feet more. It gets you over your foot more instead of jumping away from the wall. You get to jump into the wall, which is actually better for, you get more time before you start falling, you jump higher. So let's take a look at this one and notice his hips. All right, so hopefully you saw that. Let's play it back again in slow-mo. Let's take a look at his hips here. Right there. See, he bumps his hips out. His arms are so outstretched that it's hard to go farther than that. but he makes his hips go out before he jumps, and look how close he is to the wall there. Yeah, he doesn't stick the hold, but like I said before, that's kind of besides the point. You know, he's working the move. He just jump a bit farther. All right, so let's take a look at his Ladura Dura example. So, and take a look at, like I said before, his right hip. He's gonna bring it out, and then he's gonna really bring it in. So see, he brings it out, and look how close his hip is to the wall whenever he latches that hold. So see if I can go frame by frame here. So he brings his hips out from the wall. And like I said in the last video, his arms are so outstretched already that it's hard for him to bring his hips out a lot. So he's doing as much as he can, but look how close his hip gets to the wall. And when he latches the hold, you know, he was a bit late to latch the hold. I think that's why it looks so desperate whenever he does. So he latches it there, and he sticks it with 2 fingers, which is just kind of insane. But the point is there. So he brings his hips as close to the wall as possible and hits the hold whenever his hips are as close to the wall as possible, and latches the hold and then catches the backswing with both hands on the wall. All right, so let's take a look at maybe another example. This is a really good example. This is Jimmy Webb on Lucid Dreaming. Every move that he does pretty much has a hump. So I'm going to go through pretty much every move. All right, let's check it out. All right, first I have a hump. It's just the easy move. But check out his hips and how much he moves it back on the second move. Look at that, look at that. And he comes in to fall into the crimp. So that was a very good example of a mini hump. So, you know, as you can see, he wasn't like going out all the way. You know, that would create a lot of momentum. He doesn't want that. He just wants to buy himself kind of time in that weightlessness part of, you know, of motion to let go of his right hand and bring it somewhere else. Now this next move is going to be a bigger dead point, you know, to the pinch. And look how close, and he's going to stick his butt out, and look how close he's going to get his hips to the wall while falling in. So there's the hump. And as you can see, he catches the backswing with both hands on the wall. And then this is the dyno, so he's going to, you know, he brings his hips back a bit, as much as he can, and he hits it, and he catches a swing. Just what a crazy bolter problem. All right, so next is going to be my personal favorite. This is a friend of mine, Brian, and he's climbing a moonboard benchmark. This is called Bunny. But I want you to take a note at these first couple of moves. So look at this, not this one, but this bump. Look at his hips for this move. He's going to move it to the left, and then he's going to let go whenever his hips are closest to the wall, and latch whenever his hips are very close to the wall. Okay, did you see that? It's very subtle. And then this move is even more subtle. He's going to bring his hips to the right a lot, hump to the left and inwards to let go of the left hand to fall into the left hand. So check this out. And that is maybe one of the most beautiful humps that I have ever seen. Just very aware of all 3 dimensions. And the rest of the climb, he does do some humps. They're bigger humps. They're not as subtle, which is, in my opinion, a bit less fun. So he does do a hump for this move. So he brings his hips to the left and in, right and up. And then this next move is a static move pretty much. And then there's also him on the next climb. He does this really nice hump in the middle of it. So this part is all pretty much static. Even that, you could see a little mini hump there. All right, so check out how much he brings his hips back. See how much extra he brings his hip back there. and there too. And this is him just kind of campusing. As you can see, he kind of pauses in the air, and he gets to latch the hold whenever he's in that kind of paused, frozen position. That's kind of the goal here for the hump. All right, so that's going to be it for the videos. I know this was a long video, but I hope you learned something. I have some other ideas of other techniques that are kind of like this, very subtle and not really talked about online. You know, it's not like this very like advanced technique, I feel like, to be aware of. It's not like, oh, just flag your foot or do a drop knee. It's kind of very, very subtle. I have a couple other examples like this. If you want to see other videos like this, then let me know. It was pretty fun to make. So yeah, but that's going to be it for the hump. Let me know if it helps you in your climbing or if it doesn't, and if you have any critiques or criticisms for the video and stuff. And yeah, it's going to be it. Thanks.